Alright guys, so we're back on round 2 of the ignition switch since we had a lot of things wrong. We had to hardwire everything to the battery, which is not correct, so we know we were wrong. Anyway, battery's good to go. We have our PiTech, which is hardwired to the positive side of the battery, and I can see on our unit we have 12 volts. So previously we are in the run position. Anyway, previously we couldn't get 12 volts in our coil, which is why I just hardwired it to the battery. I will show you the wiring that I messed up and we can go from there. So it's kind of hard, but right now we got 0 volts. It's going to be kind of hard to do this one-handed. Let me see if I can tuck that in. Let's see. Yeah, it's got to be coil. Try and jam this in there. So you've got 9.5 volts as is. Whenever I touch that coil wire, which is a good sign, which is this pink wire. So now we're gonna do, this is our wire that we jumped this red one here to the positive side of the battery to get our car to start. So we're going to get rid of that. That way we don't have a 12 volt feed feeding our coil. Check that again. We are still, 1 second, Joe. You doing stuff. We are still at 0 volts. I thought I had this figured out. Okay, we have a good continuity. Let's see. So we'll hear it beep if we have good continuity on our coil. Which we do. Alright. Okay, I thought I had this figured out. Basically, coming off of one of the ignition wires, we had a ground, which I did not have hooked up at all, that we now have hooked up. And what I did was I just went ahead, grounded off the paint right here, put a rib nut in there, and then just a cord 20 volt, and we have it grounded now. So, don't know why that didn't work. Checking all the connectors right now on the ignition switch. And we also had a 12 volt accessory on the ignition switch that we did not have hooked up either. So, what wire? I don't know what this red wire is. I believe that's power. So, that it needs to be hooked up. Make sure we're doing that blind, which could be our problem. There we go. Alright, just felt it slide on there. So we'll have to crimp out a pair of pliers on there, the spade connector. Alright, so those are all hooked up. Should have good ground. I'm going to bring my multimeter over, check to see we got a ground. We got 12.6 volts now. So maybe that's a good sign. We have, I don't even know what this goes to. That's our battery plus, so yeah, we definitely probably blew this fuse, as you guys can see. Not a big deal. Double check this. We have 12. Do not. So I wonder if it has to be cranking for it to have 12 volts. Which it might only be when it's cranking, not when it's in the run position. So I have to probably get my wife out here. See what happens. Welcome back, guys. We are on ignition switch round 2. Got a lot of good news in terms of the ignition switch, and actually haven't powered everything. It is extremely windy today, so I'm not going to go over much, and I have pretty much the time to make this video before I have to leave. So I'm not going to go to an insane amount of detail, but we are going to go over what I had wrong and what's maybe some issues you will run into with a very cheap kit. Again, this was like the time I purchased it, I think it was like 80 bucks off Amazon. So we finally figured it out in terms of how come we didn't have power to the ignition switch. Currently now the car, there goes my wife, yesterday when we got it all figured out, it will turn over. I think it's just my battery's so dead, and the fact that I have everything loosely connected, nothing's really hardwired. I have a lot of little things that are like, you know, just twisted together, very, very temporary. It's just, it has to push a lot more amperage through in order to do anything. So the car is very close to starting consistently. It's just not quite there yet. And I just need to, now that I know what we have going on up to this point, I know everything's correct. I'm going to go ahead and start solidifying all these wires, getting all the connectors in, start organizing how I want to lay out everything, start cutting wires and stuff to get everything tidied up and cleaned up and mounting everything. But that'll be done off camera. I do plan on making a video on where I'm going to do, I think I'm going to do some over here with like my little fuse panel here, my Phytech stuff, my relays for my fans and everything. But I want to do kind of a nice panel maybe right here and playing around with that in my free time. So we'll see what, you know, I come up with and what I like there. All right, so original problem, we had to basically modify the wiring, GM color coded 21 circuit wiring, to work with our Ford starter style switch. Now I don't have the pigtail for the ignition switch. I think whenever I took out the old one, I don't know what I did with it, other than I think I probably just tossed it and threw it away, unfortunately. So I may have to buy another one. As you guys can see, we just have some stuff kind of ran through here. I have the pinout on how I did things, and it's not exactly the best right now. I mean, the spade connectors are fine, but you can see I have this little jumper that I made to go to the fuel pump, because, you know, that's a different video, but for some reason the fuel pump's not getting power unless I add this jumper in. I need to see if I put the fuel pump power wire to one of the accessories, see if that works with the starter style. But I already had this wire from when I originally ran the Phytech, so I did that and it works. So, you know, the fuel pump, everything's good. I just need to figure out how come the harness is not sending power over to the fuel pump. Could just be background, could be, you know, something else. I found a whole bunch of grounds that I didn't have plugged in. These black ones here that are randomly throughout the harness. So anyway, we did not have 12 volts at the ignition switch. That was our biggest problem. So I was really struggling, doing everything I could. When I ran a jumper wire directly to the battery, to the fuel pump, and to the distributor wire, I believe it was, the car started. So I knew at that point it's something to do with the ignition switch. And testing the battery positive, we never had 12 volts. Now we do. If I had, you know, turned the key forward and stuff and had the battery all hooked up and everything, which I don't right now, it would have 12 volts. So what was wrong? Well, we had the ignition switch wiring actually correct. Everything was good to go there. It was the fact that we did not have a constant 12 volt power going to the actual fuse panel. That makes a lot of sense. I was actually very confused when I was thinking about it, like, how does that stuff get power? I was thinking maybe it's going through these, you know, the power wire that's going to trigger the starter, and it's like back flowing through the starter. I had no idea. So after doing a lot of research, trying out a ton of different things, couldn't quite figure it out until we jumped the battery. Well, what I did was I actually put it in ChatGPT, and holy cow, guys, if you're building a car utilizing ChatGPT, you know, if you don't know how to do it, I'd recommend it. It was awesome. So ChatGPT told me, I'll see if I can post the screenshots in, but basically it told me, you know, what wires to look for, and I could put in there that I had my battery located in the trunk. I removed the Ford style starter solenoid, and I have this starter, I have this alternator, and it broke down basically everything. And I put in there, I had a universal 21 GM circuit color coded, you know, wire harness, and it actually provided me a lot of information. some of that information is every single wire has a number on it. And you see that's 06. It'll zoom in there and slip it this way. So that one, ooh, come on, 06 radio constant power. There's a 20 on that yellow one right there, 20 left something. There's a 31 ignition switch accessory, 21, 72. So every single one has a label, which is actually really neat. And apparently, according to looking around online, most of these wires are done one of two ways when they're labeled with that number. This kit was lucky enough too that about every 6 inches or so, it's stamped with the name. So radio constant, you go up about 6 inches, radio constant. If I keep going up, you'll see radio constant again. So makes it super useful. So ChatGPT told me I was looking for, I believe it was like wire 48 or 52. It's commonly labeled as fuse panel power, battery 12 volt power, something along those lines. And I went through every single wire, couldn't find anything. It also said that obviously, because that's going to be, constant 12 volt power, it's going to be a thicker wire in general, typically 10 to 12 gauge, I believe. So I couldn't find it. And I knew that obviously it would have to be something in my engine bay. So I started going through and started, looking at all these, couldn't find anything. But then I found the 52 right here, and it is called solenoid power. Thicker wire. Literally what I did was I found anything that was thicker than any other wires, and I typed it in to ChatGPT, and it broke down its function, what it does, where it goes, and it told me where I should put this wire, because I don't have the Ford's starter solenoid, the stock style starter solenoid. It remembered that, and it remembered that I had the battery in the trunk, and it also remembered that I have that Power Master Master Torque starter. So it told me everything where it needed to go, which was freaking cool. So it told me that this wire here, which I had on the battery positive, and it was not happy. Well, that's because you have to install this 45 amp, I believe it's 45 amp breaker in here, and it needs to have constant power. So what I did was I've been running constant power with this big red lead here to the battery positive on my starter, just because it was an easy spot, and I could run it up to the circuit breaker, and I had like my Phytech unit on there. I had I think the distributor wire on there. I don't even remember. I think I had the accessory for the Phytech. I don't know. I had quite a few things in here. As soon as I would hook up my solenoid power wire, you can see I actually burnt out this connector here. It kept blowing fuses, and I was like, okay, well, that's not right. Something's not right. Well, then that's when I found out that you need to install this there, and that is the main power for your fuse harness, is number 52, solenoid power. So this is where cheaper kits, terminology is not exactly the same. Everything else I was looking around online literally said like fuse power, 12 volt fuse power, 12 volt battery, something like that, versus anything with solenoid power. So we did that. We just threw some spade connectors on there like we had for the rest of the build, and everything worked. So so far that's been my only hiccup that's been really throwing me in a loop in terms of this kit for $80 just being off. And I think somebody who is more competent and maybe not as intimidated by electrical wiring compared to me and smarter than me could figure it out a lot quicker. So we are good to go there. Really happy with it. So that was the biggest one for the ignition switch. So I can go ahead and remove this guy, which is fine by me. I even tried bringing this back in, wiring things here. It wasn't quite working. It was like close, but not right. So, we were going through the whole gambit trying to figure it out, and we finally got it. So that is it for the ignition switch for now. In the future, I'm gonna obviously, like I said, clean up all these wiring, attach everything more efficiently, build some type of panel over here, which when I build that panel, I'm going to probably have video on that. And then I do think I am going to order that ignition switch wiring, like pigtail. I don't like it just kind of having the spade connectors on there. I think it's fine, you know, right now to start the car, but I don't want anything, you know, sparking and arcing in there just because it's a lot of current and power going through there. I think that's why it has that big rubber insulated plug. I think it would be very unsafe actually not to use that. So we're going to be ordering that from my main man Dan over at Maryland Mustang, and we'll be getting that figured out. So in the meantime, guys, please post you know, any questions, anything you have. I'll try to get back to you. You can reach out. I'm pretty active on the Facebook and Instagram and stuff too, trying to get more on that. Matches my YouTube channel name. So I'm trying to, you know, really post up more and answer questions. I've had a lot of questions on Vintage Mustang forum and stuff about these this wiring harness. So I'm really trying to be a little bit more detailed than most people with the diagrams and things, and put it in an easy to read format that an idiot like me can understand. Maybe not exactly necessarily know the why it's working or how it's working or what it's doing, but at least give you a diagram I'm using and make it, you know, really simple. So with that, keep asking away. I'm gonna keep learning, keep messing up, but we'll go from there. If anybody has any helpful tips, tricks, comments on wiring, anything we could do better, anything I'm doing wrong, let me know in the comments below, and we can assist others along their Mustang restoration journey. I personally, guys, I know I like using these heated heat shrink terminals only. They're the only ones I've used on like the entire car. They do cost more, but I really like using those. And then now I know this needs to be hardwired, I'll actually be cutting these out, doing a nice waterproof butt connector, and then probably doing like the black heat shrink tubing over it, just to make sure that is protected and really nice and professional. I haven't decided on everything yet 100%, but those are the connectors I like to use. You can see use them literally everywhere, so there may be some better options. The thing I got to figure out once I run all this wiring, get everything up here kind of done and figured out, we're going to be moving on to the steering wheel turn signal switch, which I had everything on spade connectors just to test it out, but we didn't have power to anything. The connectors that it came with, I couldn't figure out how to use it. It seemed like it didn't make sense. So I got to figure out what all wires we have for the 67, because it has some blanks there that we aren't using. And then I'm gonna probably just order like one big connector off Amazon, some generic one, and we're going to, you know, make our own. I just don't know how many I got to use yet, so I'll be looking at doing that here in the future too. It just sucks because there's not a lot of wiring room left here at all to try and get the connector up in there. So we'll have to figure that out. Other than that, everything seems to be going pretty well. Keep moving along, and you know, we'll keep posting up and try and do one thing at a time to really, you know, break it down. I won't be doing a lot of the things much more beyond just getting the car up and running and moving at this current stage of its life. So the gauges, I'm not going to get into the gauges because these are all electronic gauges, and really the only ones that are going to work for me with my current setup is going to be the speedometer and the, I believe, oil pressure sending unit, a little gauge there. I can get the tach, and I might be able to get the fuel gauge potentially to work. It's an electronic fuel gauge though with their new tanks. I don't know if that'll work well with their old mechanical style. I don't know. I know it's just a pulsed signal being sent, so hopefully it'll work, but we'll see. So we're going to try and adopt them into what we have right now. I really like the old school gauges. I really don't want to change them too much, and I haven't found anything that really mimics the old school gauges that would work with this. Have seen some online, the Dakota Digitals, they look about the best, but they're like $1,000, so not that important to me right now. So we probably won't be doing much on that, and then we got to move on to our other stuff that we got going on for the car. So we are getting close to making it drivable. Got to hopefully move it this year with the new motor and transmission. I think once I get it wired up, guys, we're going to be dropping it off somewhere. We'll be making a video about that for some of the stuff that I just don't have the knowledge to do. or the time. So we'll have to get some of that stuff figured out. Hopefully somebody can find us soon and we'll be done. So, all right, guys, thank you.